Warning, spoilers ahead. Today, I will recap an action thriller crime movie released in 2013, called The Terror Live. This movie tells a story of a famous ex-news anchor who gets a mysterious call from a terrorist in the middle of a radio broadcast. The terrorist claimed that he will blow up the bridge if he doesn't fulfill his desire. What will he do with the terrorist order? Let's find out together. The story starts with our protagonist, Yoon, hosting a daily morning radio broadcast. He opens the radio broadcasting and picks up an interaction call from Noku, a construction worker. Yoon asks Noku about his opinion of rich people paying less tax than ordinary people. Unfortunately, Noku doesn't answer the topic properly. Instead, he complains about the electricity tax, and as soon as Yoon hears it, he hangs up the call and then switches to the second caller. In the middle of their call, Noku suddenly cut the talk between Yoon and the second caller. Yoon tries to fix it by switching to a short commercial break. Yoon asks the operator to check the communication line during the short commercial break. Unfortunately, the operator explains that they can't disconnect the call, so they politely ask Noku to hang up, but Noku insists on talking with Yoon. After taking a deep breath, Yoon convinces Noku to hang up the call while finding out where the calls come from. Suddenly, Noku claims that he has a bomb to blow up Mapo Bridge, but Yoon thinks Noku's statement is a joke as he challenges him to blow up the bridge. As Yoon tries to recover the radio broadcast on the second session, he hears electronic static while wearing the headset, followed by burst vibration. Turns out, Noku actually blows up the bridge. Yoon hurriedly looks at the bridge from a nearby window. As he checks the bridge condition, the second bomb blows up in front of his viewing angle. Yoon rapidly calls the police to make a report. But after thinking about it for a while, he finds this opportunity to make an exclusive news talk with Noku. At the same time, the producer tries to call the police. Yoon rapidly orders his operator to cancel the report. He then asks his production team whether they are the only ones listening to the Noku statement that he'll blow up the bridge. Yoon makes sure that what Noku says doesn't go through radio broadcasting. Knowing the situation, Yoon convinces his production team and orders the operator to copy the radio broadcast recording. He immediately calls his supervisor in the news program, Chief Ha, to tell him what happened as Yoon runs to the office toilet. At the other place, Chief Ha picks the call and listens to Noku's statement recording sent by Yoon. Chief Ha is interested in that recording and wants to be the first one to broadcast it. Yoon makes a deal with Chief Ha to convince the board of directors to return Yoon to his former position as a news anchor. Secretly, Yoon also records his speech with Chief Ha, so Chief Ha doesn't backstab him and obey his desire. Yoon orders him to set up exclusive news interview equipment in his studio room. On his way back to the studio room, Yoon calls his ex-wife, who is on her way to report the bridge bombing. Unfortunately, his ex-wife hangs up the calls. Because of that, Yoon leaves her a message mentioning that he is back to being a news anchor again and offering her to reconcile their relationship. When Chief Ha arrives at his studio room, his staff rapidly unloads and installs the news equipment. The producer is confused about why Chief Ha takes over his program. As a result, the producer files his objection to Chief Ha. He apologizes to the producer and tells him that the CEO and director approved the sudden change in the middle of his program. After hearing that, the radio broadcasting teams left the room angrily. Sometimes before the newsflash begins, Yoon picks Noku calls. Noku asks for some payment from Yoon. Consequently, Yoon asks what the money's for, which is answered by Noku as for his investment because they will get more commercials. They tell Noku that they will pay him after the newsflash, but Noku insists on having the payment now and says he'll switch to another station if they don't want to wire the pay. Because of that, Chief Ha agrees with wiring the payment up front so that the newsflash can be started right away. Yoon asks Noku about his main reason for blowing up the Mapo Bridge in the newsflash. Noku tells them that it's due to the death of 3 construction workers. Moreover, their families didn't receive compensation or apologies. To compensate, he orders Yoon to get the president's formal apology for their death to their families. Noku also threatens Yoon that he has to abide by everything he says, but Yoon doesn't bother with Noku threats. Consequently, Noku spread the recording about Yoon badmouthing and challenging him to blow up the bridge. Because of that, Chief Ha calls Yoon into the operator room. Chief Ha asks Yoon why he challenges Noku. After that, he assigns rookie news anchors to take over the newsflash. Noku threatens to change the news anchor back to Yoon, but she doesn't budge him. Consequently, Noku remotely blows a bomb inside the microphone up. As a result, her face is severely injured. As Yoon goes back to his studio, No-koo tells Yoon that he has planted a bomb inside his earpiece that will blow up if Yoon steps outside from the desk range. He demands Yoon to abide by every single word of his commands. Because of that, Yoon feels under enormous pressure. He asks Chief Ha to delay the news flash further back airing. In contrast, No-koo orders him not to try his patience and continues the news flash. Suddenly, No-koo blows up another side of the bridge, therefore, trapping his ex-wife in the middle of the bridge while making a live report. Fortunately, his ex-wife is still alive and unharmed. Afterwards, No-koo also orders him to invite the president to appear in his studio to make the formal apology within 10 minutes. Moreover, No-koo promises if Yoon succeeds in doing it, he'll surrender himself to the police. Chief Ha prohibits Yoon from calling the president, but he violates his order by calling the White House himself. Sometimes later in the studio, the captain of the counterterrorism bureau, Park, comes. He helps Yoon stay calm and not respond to No-koo every word. Park suggests he change the topic by discussing current bridge situations. After hearing Park's suggestion, Yoon describes the situation on the bridge. He broadcasts that a car and their whole passenger were trapped at the bridge's edge after the last explosion. Suddenly, a police commissioner comes to the studio and forces No-koo to surrender himself to the police. Of course, No-koo refuses to surrender. No-koo forces Yoon to chase away the police commissioner, but the police commissioner insists on staying in the studio. He also mocks No-koo's incompetence, which No-koo answered with teases that the police commissioner was a bribe suspect. While the police are tracking the phone call, Park advises the police commissioner to stop speaking and let Yoon lead the discussion. Sadly, the police commissioner doesn't want to back down. The commissioner spreads No-koo's family identity openly, telling that his son has received scholarship funding from the government. After a long mocking from the police commissioner, No-koo suggests Yoon to yeet the police commissioner out before he did it himself. Yoon warns the commissioner by writing it down on paper, stating a bomb inside his earpiece. Unfortunately, it's already too late. The commissioner's earpiece blows out inside his ear and ends the commissioner's life. Soon after, Yoon figures out the location of No-koo's hiding place and tells Park about his deduction of how the bridge blew up, perfectly harming no one. He thinks No-koo might be near the bridge and doesn't intend to create casualties. After Yoon tells his plan to Park, he invites No-koo to appear in the studio within 3 minutes if he wants to get the president's apology. Of course, No-koo does not immediately trust what Yoon says. No-koo knows that Yoon is lying to him. Because of that, No-koo asks Yoon back about his scandal for accepting bribes and stealing his ex-wife's work in a journalistic competition by ordering other station news anchors to interview him. The other news anchor asks Yoon for clarification. He tries not to answer it and states that it is just speculation. Unfortunately, the news anchor denies his defense because the document is obtained from a trustworthy person. Then, Chief Ha confesses to Yoon that he was the person who leaked it to get the director position. As the program ratings reach the target, Chief Ha disposes of the responsibility to Yoon and requests Yoon to forget about their deal. At the bridge, Yoon's ex-wife reports the situation. Many civilians are still stuck on the bridge, waiting for help. Yoon asks if she is okay. But, instead of answering Yoon's question, she is focused on showing the situation on the bridge while the bridge keeps vibrating. Afterwards, the vibration keeps worsening every second. To prevent any casualties, she begs No-koo mercy to let the helicopter help the people evacuate in exchange for her staying hostage. She believes that the president will apologize to him if No-koo spares innocent civilians. In a split second, No-koo agrees to evacuate the civilians. Sadly, it's too late. The bridge collapses, making all the trapped civilians and his ex-wife fall into the river. Yoon asked about No-koo's feelings for not sparing the innocent hostage. Yoon cried in front of the live broadcast, asking the save and rescue team to help all of the victims. At the other place inside the building next to the SNC tower, the police have encircled an area suspected to be No-koo's hiding place. Those police shout, asking No-koo to come out from his hiding shack. Unfortunately, they raid the wrong place and find the shed empty. Immediately, No-koo blows the building up. It causes the building foundation to break and crashes the SNC tower, making it tilt. That chaos causes a lighting lamp to hit Yoon's head, making him unconscious. When Yoon wakes up, he sees everything is in such a mess. Suddenly, the phone rings, and when he picks it up, No-koo tells him that there is a bomb inside the SNC tower. He threatens to collapse the whole building if he doesn't fulfill his demand. Subsequently, Yoon proposes a plan to fulfill No-koo's wishes of getting the president's apology. He promotes himself to become Noku hostage and asks Noku to meet him. Starting to trust Yoon, Noku also clears up his lie about Yoon's earpiece containing a bomb. He rapidly removes it from his ear. Afterward, Yoon walks away from his studio and checks the current situation of the other news stations. At that time, Yoon discovers that Noku had died 2 years ago in operator rooms. He read a paper the police commissioner held and found the real perpetrator's identity. It turns out that the perpetrator is none other than Noku-san. After that, Yoon prepares a camera on the floor above his studio to broadcast his newsflash, stating he's no longer following what Noku wishes. Yoon switches the camera view to his studio, catching right-hand Noku-san. Then, Yoon attacks Noku and they roll down the tilted SNC tower. Luckily, Yoon is stuck in the wall while Noku hangs on the rope. Yoon asks Noku why he's doing this to him. Noku tells Yoon that his father was Yoon's loyal audience when he was still working as a news anchor, and his father believed Yoon was a trustworthy person. He also tells the story about how the police don't help the worker who falls into the river because they are too busy with the president's international event nearby. Lastly, he also tells about how Social Security tries to reap their insurance money, thus the family of the deceased worker gets nothing. After that, Yoon feels touched and lends his hand to grab Noku up. Unfortunately, Noku gets shot and falls from the height. The story ends with Yoon watching news reports that his ex-wife is dead from the bridge collapse. Can't handle the sadness, he presses the explosive button, blowing up the SNC tower and follows his ex-wife. What would you do if you were in Yoon's position? Let us know what you think in the comment below. Thank you for watching, and as always, see you next time.